Now that the hostages are home, what is actually happening on the ground in Gaza? Because, of course, we have this ceasefire, we have a cessation of hostilities, and according to the Trump plan, what's supposed to happen is that all the remaining deceased hostages, those bodies are supposed to be returned to Israel, and then we're supposed to move to the next phase of Trump's deal, which includes disarming Hamas and moving to the day after and the eventual rebuilding and rehabilitation of the Gaza Strip. But we're nowhere near that now. So in this video, we're going to go through the situation that's happening right now on the ground in Gaza, which is getting very, very tense. And it could even be that this entire ceasefire is going to fall apart in the coming days. So here's the situation. So in compliance with their side of the deal, the Israeli Defense Forces withdrew to an internal perimeter within the Gaza Strip. You see it in the map on your screen right now. This perimeter surrounds the main population center. Inside the perimeter, meaning on the Hamas side, as it were, we have the major population centers in the middle of the Gaza Strip. And the IDF, as I said, has pulled out of those areas. So Hamas is reasserting its control. As part of this ceasefire deal, there's large quantities of humanitarian aid, hundreds of trucks every day that are now going directly into these areas. And that means that Hamas is once again taking control of the humanitarian aid, and they are using it to rebuild and reassert their power over the population. Hamas is also hunting its enemies. During the course of the war, during the course especially of the last half year or so, and we've talked about this in some previous videos, there have been local clans that have formed militias to replace Hamas, and they've even been fighting against Hamas, trying to drive Hamas out of control of certain areas of the population. And Hamas is now reasserting itself, and there have actually been gunfights. They're really going to war against these clans who they see as traitors who turned on them during the course of the war. And now they're hunting them. Have a look at this clip. That was a clip of Hamas publicly executing members of one of the clans that stood up against Hamas and fought against them during this war. So Hamas is brutally reasserting its control over the Gaza Strip. Now, Hamas has also been testing the Israelis. Already since the ceasefire went into effect, 7 Hamas terrorists have been killed for crossing the perimeter line into areas controlled by the IDF. Now, why on earth would they do that? These Hamas guys don't just have a death wish that they're testing the Israelis over. The reason that Hamas terrorists were crossing the perimeter line is that they were in pursuit of some of these local Gazans who they were hunting, members of these militias, of these families who were anti-Hamas, who have been escaping into the IDF-controlled areas. And when the Hamas terrorists have followed them there to chase them, to hunt them down, the Israelis have responded with the warnings not to cross the line. And then once the Hamas terrorists have crossed the line, they have been dealt with. So 7 Hamas members have been killed already. And this points to the fact that Israel insisting on strictly enforcing the deal. Before we go on, make sure to go into the description of this video below and download the free ebook that is available there. This is a collection of columns that I've published over the course of the last year and a half since the beginning of the October 7th war. It really gives you a feel, like almost like a diary, gives you a feel for everything we've been through in this war. So go ahead and download that ebook. Hamas is obligated to return the bodies of 28 deceased Israelis. Now, there are some of those bodies that, to be perfectly honest, Hamas does not have any ability to return, but the Israelis know for sure that Hamas is holding more bodies than they've returned. As of the recording of this video, only 9 of the 28 bodies have been returned to Israel. Hamas also returned 1 body of a local Gazan who was dressed up in an IDF uniform. So they've been playing games with this ceasefire. And Israel's Defense Minister Katz put out a statement just yesterday. IDF is operating in accordance with directives and enforcing a clear policy of preparedness along the yellow line. The enforcement policy is unequivocal For every violation, there will be an immediate response. Yesterday, terrorists who attempted to approach and cross were prevented from doing so, and so it will be in the future as well. And Defense Minister Katz also put out a statement yesterday announcing that he had given instructions to the IDF to present operational plans to go back into the areas that they've withdrawn from to completely finish off the job destroying Hamas. Now, when a statement like that is made, you have to ask yourself the question, why do we know about it? In other words, Defense Minister Katz could have told the IDF to prepare those plans without making a public announcement about it. But the fact that there's a public announcement by the defense minister saying that I've told the IDF to present operational plans to retake the areas that we withdrew from and to completely destroy Hamas, when he puts out a statement like that, it means that he's signaling to the world, to the Americans, and to Hamas themselves that Israel has every intention on fully enforcing this, even if it means that the ceasefire falls apart. In other words, Israel's policy going forward is to fully enforce the deal and not tolerate any violations. And we also have a very important party in Netanyahu's coalition is calling on the Israeli government to cancel the ceasefire deal until Hamas fully complies and returns the bodies of all the deceased hostages. And this speaks to a larger change of approach that Israel has implemented to violations of deals in general ever since October 7th. And we've talked about this in some earlier videos, that before October 7th, for decades, Israel's approach to what we might call minor violations, and sometimes not even so minor, but Israel's approach to violations of ceasefires and peace deals in general with its Arab neighbors has been to turn a blind eye to violations and prefer to keep the deal going even though the other side is violating. What this has allowed is for Israel's enemies to continually chip away at various ceasefire deals. So we saw this for many years along the Gaza border, where even though Hamas would launch some rockets at Israeli towns, Israel would very often not do anything about it. We saw it along the Lebanese border for many, many years. Hezbollah was moving weapons and personnel past a line that was agreed upon, and Israel would turn a blind eye to it. And ever since October 7th, Israel's approach to all violations has changed. We talked about this regarding Hezbollah in Lebanon, that ever since the ceasefire deal was signed with Hezbollah, and ever since it went into effect, Israel has continued to carry out operations in South Lebanon, taking out Hezbollah personnel and weaponry that is being put back into areas that it is not allowed to be. We saw this also with the recent 12-day war with Iran, where minutes after the ceasefire officially went into effect, Iran tested Israel by launching more missiles, even after the ceasefire was in effect. And the Israelis responded by sending fighter jets to go carry out airstrikes in Iran. Now, at the time, President Trump called Prime Minister Netanyahu and asked him to call back those fighter jets, and Israel complied with that. But you see that Israel's approach, Israel's policy with regard to violations of ceasefires has changed. It's a change in paradigm in how Israel deals with its enemies. So Israel is in a position right now where they very much want to be enforcing every aspect of the ceasefire. Now, what makes Israel's desire to have a zero-tolerance policy for violations of the deal with Hamas is that Israel doesn't want to blow up Trump's peace deal. They don't want to have a situation where Israel is resuming fighting and the Trump administration steps in to try to keep the ceasefire going. And this brings us to recent statements by President Trump about the disarming of Hamas.
We have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently.
So President Trump is adamant that Hamas will be disarmed. But at the same time, as I pointed out in our previous video, Hamas has said quite clearly that they will not disarm. But you might be wondering, what about the fact that the Trump plan calls for Hamas to disarm? Well, take a look at this clip from Sky News. The interviewer asks a Hamas spokesperson point blank, how can you not disarm if disarming is the next phase of the Trump deal? Take a look at his response.
Dr. Bassan, this is part of the deal, though. This is written very clearly as part of Donald Trump's 20-point plan.
We are not part of the whole deal. We have accepted the first phase which is including end of the war, prisoner exchange, withdrawal, and aid.
Notice what he said there. Hamas is not part of the Trump deal. I pointed out in the video that I first did analyzing Trump's 20-point plan that Trump's plan is not a deal between Israel and Hamas. It's a deal between Israel and the United States and those other countries who join with the United States in carrying out a forced surrender of Hamas. So here's Hamas coming right out and saying, this is not our deal. We're not part of this deal. We never agreed to any kind of disarmament. So here's the bottom line of the current situation. Hamas is refusing to disarm. Israel has stated its willingness to resume fighting to disarm Hamas, but Israel doesn't want to be the ones to blow up President Trump's ceasefire deal. So now we have President Trump saying, I'll take care of it. And he's talking tough, trying to get Hamas to disarm. The Arab partners will never lift a finger to disarm Hamas. And everything is coming to a head in the coming days. So fasten your seatbelt, folks. It's going to be a bumpy ride.